All right, so welcome on, holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, want to welcome on, holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. And we are going to start, we're going to start verse 11. Yeah, we just finished up pretty much after a number of weeks. Finished up verse 10, right, about eating blood and being spiritually cut off and all that. So here the Torah says again, Book of Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11. It says, Ki nefesh habasar, v'dami, v'ani nesativ lachem, al mizbeach lechaper nafshosechem, ki adam hu b'nefesh yechaper. So here, the Torah says, for the life of the flesh and the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for you, for your souls, for the blood, with the life that makes atonement. So essentially, simple explanation. The simple explanation is life of the flesh and the blood. Right? In other words, blood, you have the lowest part of the soul, the nefesh, right? An animalistic soul. And that's the connection between body and soul. And how does it interact with the blood? Right? So we hold, practically speaking, that if a person eats, a Jew eats an animal not supposed to eat, or essentially eats blood, so really the flesh is in the blood. And that flesh is used for what? Upon the altar. Right? So it has an effect. And therefore, why is it going on the altar? For atonement. Right? It's going for atonement for your soul. Because blood is a life that makes atonement. Right? So essentially, blood is the life of a person. And a person eats an animal, again, Jew eats an animal not supposed to. They eat the blood. It's like they're eating the soul. But here, the blood is a life. It's a life that makes atonement. Comes along Rashi. Rashi says, what does that mean? What does it mean for the life of the flesh? First of all, it means of every creature. Not only animals brought as sacrifices. Could be any animal. Even animals not used as sacrifices. And it's dependent on the blood. Right? So not only the animals brought as sacrifices, but what are we dependent on? What's it dependent on? The blood. So says Rashi, it's for this reason I place it on the soul, on the altar. What's the purpose of the blood going on the altar? What's the purpose of it going on the altar? To atone. Right? To atone for the life of man. Let life come and let him get atonement. Right? What does Rashi say here? What's Rashi going on? Because Rashi says, Ki nefesh habasar. He says the life of the flesh is in the blood of everybody. Every creature dependent on the blood, but not necessarily for sacrifices. Doesn't have to be for sacrifices. And that's why you put it on the altar. What's the purpose of blood on the altar? Purpose of the blood is atonement. Right? It's to make atonement. It says Rashi over here. Let it atone. Let life come and atone for life. Right? What's life? Life is the blood. right? Right, life is the blood. That's what it is. So that blood, where does it go? Where does the blood go? It goes on the altar. What's the purpose of the blood going on the altar? Rashi says atonement. Right? Atonement, very good. Right? So Rashi explains it's coming to atone. Blood is used as atonement. Now you know it's not human blood. Right? First thing you should notice. Talk about animal blood. And again, not necessarily animals that he uses sacrifices. But it can be used to atone. Right? If it goes on the altar. So it's very interesting. Rashi says, I place it on the altar for atonement. For the life of man, it's atonement for us. Things we do wrong. So he says, let life come and atone for life. All right, that's his language. Let the soul come, let the life come and atone. So blood atones on the altar. Now, we don't have an altar today. So blood's not going to atone. It can't atone. All right, blood can't atone. What can we use for atonement? What do we use for atonement? Tshuva. Repentance. But this is what you see. This is what you see. It's got to go on the altar. Right? It's got to make atonement. So let the life which is in the blood come and atone. Let it come and atone for a person. Very good. That's how Rashi learned. Comes on the Ibn Ezra. Now the Ibn Ezra says interesting. He says the soul that's going to atone. Right? The soul that's going to atone. Right? The lowest, again, it's the lowest part of the soul, i.e. the nefesh. And it's going to atone because the connection between the soul and the body is the blood. So it's going to come and atone. Now he says, very interesting, why? What do we see over here? What did Rashi say? What did Rashi say? It's going to make an atonement for the life of man. Let life come and atone for life. Right? Let life come, let the nefesh come and atone. Comes on the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra says there's atonement over here. And he says, what's the reason? He says, what's the reason over here? The reason is, he says, nefesh tachas nefesh. Soul under the soul. Right? Sound familiar? An eye for an eye. Even though we don't say if you poke out someone's eye, they poke out your eye. Right? We don't say that. We say you have to pay damages. And the rabbis learn out, right? It's about damages. Right? So here he's making a connection. Because what's the connection? He says, nefesh tachas nefesh. Soul for a soul. Right? And Rashi says, let life come and atone for life. The soul comes to atone for the soul. Or let life come atone for life. Then he says there are others explain a little bit different. They say others explain upon their soul. They said that doesn't make sense. Right? That is no reason, so to speak. That's going to come to atone on your soul. Yeah, because what's he coming to push off? Right? He's coming to push off the fact that what is the word nefesh going on? Nefesh going in the soul of a person. Because blood is going to atone. Or as we see in Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 8. It's a double language over here. Right? What else do you think it's going to atone for? If it says it's going to atone for yourself, that's what it's going to atone for. Yeah. So anyway, he doesn't like that explanation. So the Ibn Ezra comes and says that the nefesh, the soul, so to speak, it's going to atone for the soul. Right? In other words, life's going to come. Right? It's going to go. He says a little bit differently than Rashi. Right? And says that life is going to atone for life. One life is going to atone for the other. You ask, what's going on? An animal dies, what does that have to do with me? I'm allowed to use an animal, right, for whatever we want, as long as we don't abuse them. But what are animals used for? We can eat them, but they're used for sacrifices. The person will say, what did the animal do to deserve to die? The answer is nothing. Divine command. The divine command is, you got to bring sacrifice to different things. We can't do that. Right? Why can't we do it? Because we don't have a temple today. Right? We don't have a temple in Jerusalem today. So you can't do it. Right? There's no possible way. Because we don't have that ability. So how's that going to be? What are we going to do? Atonement. Right? Atonement. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. So an animal, divine command. God says you're going to take certain animals. You're going to use them as sacrifices for different things. You know, you're going to take the blood. Sometimes you're going to take the insides. We're going to keep this clean. Right? Sometimes you take the inside. You put it on the altar. Sometimes the animal gets totally burnt up, but it's not the animal's fault. Yeah. It's a divine command. God says, this is how you do it. This is how you gain atonement. This is what you do. So it's like a soul for a soul. But again, all the PETA pet activists, whatever you want to call them, they're going to claim, hey, they didn't do anything wrong. Animals didn't do anything wrong. So what? God gives a divine command. Right? God says these animals are going to be sacrificed. And that's going to gain atonement. You need repentance also, very true. Right? You gain atonement. And imagine if a person actually saw this being done. And a person would realize this should have been them. They should have died. They think differently next time they have to act. Not to mention the fact you're going to bring the animal. It's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you time. It'll make you think twice before you do anything wrong. Hopefully. But the animal can be used for atonement. Right? It can be used in a holy way. Now, we can eat animals. Given the ability to eat animals, I'm going to speak about that. Even though, really, at the beginning, we're supposed to be vegetarians. Right? So all the vegetarians will say, yeah, that's the higher level, not to eat meat. But remember one thing. Eating meat, if a person would say, okay, let's say they don't like meat. Okay. Not everyone has to like meat. But if they say, I'm not going to eat meat, I'm not going to eat meat because it's cruel, that'd be a different issue. Right? That seemingly would be heresy. Right? That for sure would be heresy. And the reason is, right, the reason is, right, when a person eats an animal, and someone's going to say it's cruel, that's heresy. We're allowed to eat animals. Allowed to get benefit from animals. If a person says, I don't like animals, I don't like meat, let's say, that's one thing, right? But to say, I'm not going to eat it because it's cruel, that's heresy. God gave us the ability to eat animals. He understood man's going to want to eat animals, right? To eat meat. But you're going to tell me, from the very beginning of time, wasn't it better to be vegetarian? Maybe. But God saw in the future, man's going to want to eat meat, so he tell him how to eat it. What meat you're allowed to eat. How are you supposed to check? How are you supposed to kill the animal? Yeah. But if a person's going to come back and say, this is cruel, this shouldn't be done, because the animal doesn't deserve it, right? Or something like that, that's pure heresy. So again, if they don't like they don't like to eat meats, right? They just don't like the texture of it, makes them, it's heavy, whatever, okay? But to say I'm not going to eat it because I'm not going to eat it, and it's cruel, that's different. It says, Ein simcha l'basar v'yayin. No greater joy than having meat or drinking wine. Right? Come Shabbos, comes festivals. Mitzvah to eat meat. Person doesn't like eat meat, okay. They don't get the mitzvah of eating meat, good. But if they're not eating meat for the sake of the fact that it's cruel, and it's cruel not to eat meat, it's cruel to eat meat, different issue. Totally different issue. But again, soul for soul. But, someone saying it's not fair. So it's, for non-Jews, it also applies. Right? When it comes to Noahide laws, can't be cruel to animals. That's going to be forbidden. Right? That's going to be forbidden even for non-Jews. Right? Can't abuse them. Can use them for our needs. Got plenty of needs. Yeah. You can't abuse them. You're not allowed to abuse them. Good. Comes along the Ramban. Comes along Nachmanides over here. I don't know how far we're going to get with this because there's a lot here. He says, what does the verse mean over here? What simple explanation? He says that blood's going to be forbidden. And what's the blood supposed to be used for? Blood's supposed to go on the altar in order to what? Atonement. At least Christians got some of that right. Blood is used for atonement. The only problem is not human blood. Right? Animal blood is used for atonement. So then he asks, okay, if that's true, you could ask, why is blood of a domestic animal, right, or a smaller animal, let's say, like a deer or something like that, or a bird, and it says you're not allowed to bring them up. Yeah, their blood. I'm talking about an ox or a cow or other blood that you're going to put up there. It's forbidden. Why? You say blood is blood. Why can't you put a bird's blood up there? Or a smaller animal's blood up there? So he says, you could ask, why isn't that not done? So says the Ramban can push off the question. How do you push off the question? Because the simple answer is you stay away from any blood. Only the blood's supposed to go on the altar, be sacrificed, very good. Any other blood you stay away from. Yeah, even though you have forbidden fats, right, as well, they're more, let's say, recognizable. This you don't do. So the Ramban says, in general, across the board, blood's going to be forbidden. Yeah. Because the whole point the Torah here says, stay away from blood. That's your obligation. Stay away from blood. In any way, shape, or form. But the whole question, what about non-Jews? Doesn't apply to non-Jews. Right? We mentioned that in the last verse. Right? Stay away from blood in general. So the Ramban over here says, that's how it comes out. That's how seemingly it comes out. They're going to use blood on the altar for atonement. So then the Ramban over here brings in a Rambam. He brings in the Rambam from Or Nevuchim, Guide for the Perplexed. Chele Gimel, 46. So it's going to be section 3, 46. What did the Rambam say? Now remember, the Rambam, the Or Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed, many times tries to give explanation why things are forbidden, things are permitted. There are reasons for the mitzvahs. It comes on the Rambam over there and he says, the Kasdim, remember, Ur Kasdim, that's where Abraham came from, right? We would know it today, we call it Mesopotamia. Yeah, came from that area, Fertile Crescent. And he said the Kasdims, these people, this nation, blood was disgusting to them. Right? Blood was absolutely disgusting to them. And they looked at it as being impure. They looked at blood as being impure. But even though they looked at it as being disgusting and impure, they would eat blood. Why would some of them eat blood? Even though they looked at it as being disgusting. Because they would eat blood in order to attach themselves to demons. Eating blood opened up all kinds of channels to have contact with demons and to be able to prophesize in the future. Because you come in contact with demons, you can find out the future. So even though to them blood was disgusting, why would they eat it? That has this connection to demons. Now comes on the Torah, and the Torah understands, no, we're going to uproot this crazy idea. We're going to uproot this idea of what? Eating blood, right? So the Torah is going to forbid blood in any way, shape, or form. Right? So the Rambam says, over there, the whole point is, look what the Kasdims did. They ate blood, even though it was disgusting to them. They ate it to have connection to demons. Very good. They wanted to know the future. Very good. So Torah is going to say no. Torah is going to say forbidden. Totally forbidden. So it's coming to exclude that, the Rambam says. Therefore, says the Rambam, the Torah came and said that eating blood is going to be forbidden. And the Torah is going to tell us, in order to be purified, they had to sprinkle the blood, right, on the altar. For what? For the sake of atonement. So, by the Kasdims, it's a disgusting thing. They're going to eat it for impure reasons, to have connection to demons. What are we going to use the blood for? We can't eat it. We're going to spritz it on the altar. What's the purpose of spritzing it on the altar? Atonement. Atonement. Therefore, the Torah says, in verse 10, which we spoke about for many weeks, I place my face against those that eat blood. As it says further, chapter 20, verse 6, we'll get there one day, I don't know when. In the Book of Leviticus, it says, by giving your kid over to Molech. Right? Similar thing by idolatry. The whole question what the idol of Moloch was, what they did. Either they had a child walk over fire in front of it, or actually they threw the child in the fire. Yeah. So what's the whole point with that? He says, because that brings out idolatry. But again, he says over here, well, that's not what we're talking about. Right? We're not talking about another thing over by idolatry, per se. He's having to forbidden to eat blood in general. And the whole purpose of not eating blood is going against what the non-Jews did. Right? What these Chaldeans did, the Rambam says. That they used it for terrible things. So we're going to forbid it. But God's going to forbid it across the board. Right? Except for the fact of putting it on the altar, sprinkling it on the altar, whatever it's going to be, for atonement. Then the Ramban over here says, that makes sense. Right? Then I can understand according to logic. Because again, the Rambam's trying to find a reason why this is forbidden. Why it's severe. Why it's only used on the altar. Right? But what's the problem? Now we're going to analyze the Rambam. Right? We'll look in a little bit what the Rambam says. The Rambam says they were disgusted, these Chaldeans were disgusted, right, by eating blood. They thought it was impure, but they did it in order to attach themselves to demons, in order to know the future. Very good. What's the problem? What's the obvious problem? Right? What is the obvious problem? The obvious problem is, if I look at the verse, what does the verse tell me? Right? Again, right? Let's read the verse here. The verse says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. I've given it to you upon the altar, right? You're supposed to put the blood on the altar to make a what's it called? To make a atonement for your souls, for it's the blood of the life that makes atonement. Right? That's going to make atonement over. You're going to sprinkle the blood on the altar. Very good. Says the Ramban. Says the Ramban on the Rambam over here. I got a major problem. Right? I got a major problem. Right? What's the major problem? Right? What's the issue? What's the issue? What he says is not what the Torah says. Yeah? He says the verses that speak about not eating blood, what does that have to do with the Kasdim? Right? The people from Ur Kasdim that were disgusted in blood, eating blood. And they thought they held it was impure. Well, my kesher. What in the world's the connection? He says very good, makes sense. Logically, but that's not what the Torah says. Very nice explanation. Where does he see it in the verses? Where does he see in the verse over here? Any connection to what he said? Comes on the Ramban, and the Ramban says, I don't get it. What he said makes sense. The only problem is, the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah's not mashma that. Not at all. Right? Why? Because they're going to say, what's the reason? It's forbidden. Right? Simple explanation. What's the reason it's forbidden? Comes on the Torah and says, because the soul of the flesh is in the blood. Right? In the soul, that's verse 14. Which we're not going to get to today for sure. Right? And it says, for the life of all flesh is blood atones for the soul. So you shouldn't eat any blood of any flesh. Because the life of the flesh is in the blood. That's the reason. Or that's one of the reasons, not the only reason. That's the reason Torah gives. Right? Because life is in the flesh of the blood. Right? Life is through the blood. And it says, verse 11, right? The soul, the flesh, or the soul of the flesh is in the blood. And even in Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 23. Right? It says the person needs blood. The blood is the soul. It's the soul of the person, right? Or the soul of the animal, right? That's what gives it life. So you're not allowed to eat it, right? In other words, the Ramban over here argues, and he says what the Rambam says makes sense. Well, it doesn't tell me that. That's not what the Torah tells me. Very nice story, very nice explanation, but that's not the way the Torah goes here. That's not what the Torah says. And he says, you look at verse 14, you look at back at verse 11, right? Over here, that the soul is in the blood. You look in Deuteronomy chapter 12, the soul is in the blood. Very good. So I understand I can't eat blood. That's the reason. Says it many times. It could be other reasons, but since it says it so many times, I could assume that's the reason. That the soul is in the blood, so you can't eat blood. It's like eating the soul of the animal. So the blood's going to use to atone. So comes along the Ramban and says to the Rambam, I don't get it. I have no idea what you're talking about. Very nice. Makes sense. But if the soul was in the blood, and it mentions it many, many times, that's the reason. That's most likely the reason, not the reason you gave. A much simpler reason. Much simpler reason. So comes on the Ramban, and the Ramban says, okay, I'll give you an explanation. I'll explain to you what's going on. Because God created creatures in this world for what purpose? As we said before, for the sake of man. Man has the ability to use animals whatever he wants, as long as he doesn't abuse them. Even to use them to find cures of diseases. He's allowed to do that. That's not cruelty, according to the Torah. Because he said God created living creatures in this world for what? For the sake of us. We can use them. Why? Why can we use them? Because we're the only ones to recognize the Creator. Animals are programmed. Right? They're programmed DNA. Even though an animal could decide they want to eat, they don't want to eat, whatever it is, that doesn't mean they have free will. Animals are programmed. Animals are totally programmed. So he says mankind's the only one that recognizes God. You see, plants do what they do, trees do what they do, whatever it is. Don't they also recognize God? They're not human. They don't have free choice. They're programmed. Anything that's programmed, whatever recognition they have, is because they're programmed. So it says, even so, even if man's the only one that could recognize his creator, any inanimate object can't do that, right? Or, stones, or trees, or plants, even animals, they don't recognize their creator. Even so, ask the Ramban if that's true. God did not allow us to eat meat at the very beginning. He only made us vegetarians. We're only allowed to eat fruits and vegetables. We're not allowed to eat animals. Because the Torah says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, I gave you every grass, every seed that comes from it. That's what you're supposed to eat. So the vegetarians are going to jump up and down and say, see? Supposed to be vegetarians. God didn't want you to eat meat at the beginning. Very good. But what happened? What happened? So says the Ramban, then you had the Mabul. Then you had what we call the floods. And people and animals were only saved. People meaning Noah's family were only saved through Noah, through the merit of Noah. And what did he do? He sacrificed animals. Right? And then God allowed man to eat meat. But before that, no. Now it's very interesting. He took these pure animals, Sacrifice them, says Rashi over there. How did Noach know to do that? Where did Noach know to do that? So it says he must have learned Torah. Noach must have learned Torah. If he didn't learn Torah, how do you know? Right, which is the whole question. Okay, so if he wasn't Jewish, everyone agrees Noach wasn't Jewish. They don't say Noah kept the Torah before it was given, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but even so, very high level, the only one that got saved during the flood, he and his family, they learned Torah. If he didn't learn Torah, how would he know? How would he know what to sacrifice? The question is, what level of Torah did he learn? So whatever, it's a whole discussion. Because teaching Torah to a non-Jew is forbidden, right? I don't know how to teach Torah to a non-Jew. Right? Someone, who's not going to convert. So what do you have to teach them? Yeah. Or let's say better. Someone's not going to convert. What do they learn? What's applicable to them? 7 laws, which is only an umbrella. Probably 50, 60 laws altogether. But what's, what they're supposed to do? What they're obligated to do? Now, teaching them beyond that, things that are, that really belong to Jewish people, that'd be forbidden, right? That'd be forbidden to teach them. But someone interested in converting, okay, right? So then they're allowed to be taught. The question is what you teach them, how much you teach them, right? With a whole discussion. But in general, in general, they have to know what to do. They have to know at some level what to do. Shabbos, blessings, kashrus, these different things. They have to know. Right? They're obligated to know it. So here the Ramban says, you're right. I would agree. That everyone was vegetarian up until that point. Because God gave a direct command. And he said anything that comes from these seeds, from these fruits and vegetables and all that you're allowed to eat. Which means you're not allowed to eat meat. Meat was forbidden. Very good. But the fact, says the Ramban, the fact that the flood came and they were saved by Noah, by the merit of Noah, the animals were saved and the family was saved, right? And what did Noah do afterwards? Showed his gratitude. How did he show his gratitude? He brought sacrifice. So therefore, since he brought a sacrifice, what did God do? He allowed them to eat meat. Now, there's not a contradiction. The fact that we weren't supposed to eat meat at the beginning, very good. Yeah, so vegetarians in that sense are right. Okay. But God allowed us to eat meat. He allowed us to eat meat. So you can't say, well, it's forever. In the highest levels to be a vegetarian. Yeah, that was before the flood. So what about what happened after the flood? What about after the flood? It comes on the Ramban and says, we're allowed to eat meat, just like it says in Genesis chapter 9, verse 3, anything that crawls that's alive, you can eat. Right? It's before the laws of kashrus. Before the Torah was given. You can eat it like the vegetables of the earth. And all the grasses, just like you can eat all these vegetables and fruits and everything else. So too, you can eat meat now. That's going to be clarified. Only certain animals you can eat. Right? It has to be ritual slaughter and all that. So the whole point, he says, it's just like all these fruits and vegetables are permissible. So too, you can eat animals. Why can you eat animals? He says you can eat animals because they are used for the sake of man. Man 100% has the ability to do whatever they want with animals as long as they don't abuse them. Therefore, animals are given to man for our usage. If I want to take an alligator and rip off his skin, even though it might be painful for the alligator, yeah, we can rip off his skin, make alligator boots, make an alligator purse. All the PETA activists will be jumping up and down and say you can't do that. That's being cruel. the Torah says animals are used for us. We can use them for what we want, as long as you don't abuse them. So the Ramban here states clear that we were allowed to eat meats after the flood. Right? Genesis chapter 9, verse 3. Right? Anything we're allowed to eat, just like fruits and vegetables. Just like God said, you can eat fruits and vegetables and all the grasses and all that. Very good. You can also eat meat. Because the animals are used for our purpose. Whatever we want. Again, that was clarified later. Clarified in Mount Sinai. Right? And at Mount Sinai, we're only allowed to eat certain animals. We're not allowed to eat just whatever we want. Any animal we want. Then he says that we're allowed to eat them because, again, they're for our purpose. They're for our benefits of everybody. Mankind can get benefit from animals. That's not a problem, as long as we don't abuse them. Right? And their soul, so to speak, right, what's inside them should be an atonement. Why should it be an atonement? To be brought up before God. Again, it's a divine commandment. You can say man's used for us. Right? Sorry. Animals are used for us. We can use them as sacrifices. Right? So their soul can be raised up, so to speak. The blood can be put on the altar. Not that we should eat it. Right? Because again, he says a person or anyone who's got the soul cannot eat another soul. So you can't eat the blood. Because that soul, where's it going? That nefesh of the animal, where is it going? It's going to God. It's going on the altar. Just like the soul of man, the soul of an animal. Right? They can be used. Again, can't be, right? Can't be, so you can't eat the blood. Right? You can't eat the blood. So what do I see? I'll take some questions now. What do I see? The Ramban here states clear. The whole purpose, right? The whole purpose of animals is what? For our benefits. The only thing is we can't eat the blood because the blood's like eating the soul. So where's the soul going to go? On top of the altar. Why is that going to go on top of the altar? For atonement. So we're allowed to do that. 100%. 100% we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to use them for our benefit. So again, we can't abuse them. This would apply to non-Jews also. Non-Jews also can't abuse animals. Now, that would seem to say also that non-Jews want to use animals, to cure diseases. They're allowed to. That's called our benefit. That's a huge benefit. But again, doing whatever we want, and abusing them, that's not a benefit. Taking their hide and using it to make a coat, to make boots, whatever it is, we're allowed to. That's a benefit. Further will say, but that's cruel to the animal. That's the way, how else are you going to get the hide off the animal? Yeah. Obviously, better you kill the animal first. You don't take it while they're alive, per se. Right? Take it off when they're dead, okay, because they won't feel it. You're going to say, but that's cruel. Why is that cruel? I can understand you rip their skin off while they're alive. That can be cruel. But if you kill the animal doesn't feel anything. So what's the problem? Why can't I use it? There'd be a whole question. You're allowed to kill animals in general. Yeah. And the answer is I could. For my benefit. Get me those alligator boots. Get me my alligator purse. What's the problem? There's no problem. That's not cruel. Again, doesn't matter what these Peter PETA activists, whatever you want to call them, say it's cruelty to animals. We can use animals for what we want. State's clear over here. The only thing is, they can't eat their soul. Can't eat the blood. Blood's going to be an atonement, right? That's a different issue, right? But the Ramban says, the Torah makes clear, man can eat animals. After the flood, before the flood, it was forbidden. So again, this will say the vegetarians got a point. That from the beginning of time, we were supposed to be vegetarians. Vegetarians be on a higher level. Weren't allowed to eat meat. I agree. We weren't allowed to eat meat. But then the Torah says I am allowed to eat meat. They even want to say being a vegetarian at that point is on a higher level. Even so, didn't God grant us the ability to eat meat? Okay, so we had to learn shkrita, we had to learn ritual slaughter, we had to know which animals you're allowed to eat, not allowed to eat. That came at Mount Sinai. Very good. But we're allowed to eat meat. Person shouldn't overindulge in meat, certainly not healthy. Right? But, when it comes to a festival, ain't simcha ela basar v'yayin. No greater joy than eating meat or drinking wine. Yeah, makes the person happy. Now again, some people don't like meat. Okay. It's heavy. True. It can be heavy. Right? Weighs the person down. Okay. But to say you're not going to eat meat because it's cruel to kill animals, and we don't want to be cruel to animals, that is heresy. Right? That goes way too far. Or someone says, they're going to be a vegetarian, and, a real vegetarian wouldn't even, eat eggs, or anything like that. But again, they have their own ideas. Made into a whole religion being a vegan. Whole religion. So again, if a person doesn't like meat, good. You don't like meat, okay. But to say you're not going to eat meat because it's cruel, that's heresy. It's like the Gemara says, Mishnah Brachos, also says in Megillah, that if a person says you shoot the mother bird away in order to take the eggs, if a person says that's an act of cruelty, that's heresy. It's a decree. God wants you to take the mother bird away, and He wants you to eat the eggs. Yeah, it's one of the two commandments that the Torah gives us that gives the person long life. It says explicitly by that and by honoring parents. If you honor your parents properly, you get long life. Not in this world necessarily, right? But in the next world, very interesting. Honoring parents, I can understand, it's very hard mitzvah to do. Very hard mitzvah to do. You have to honor them, stand up for them. They walk in a room. You can't contradict them. Whole question if they're evil, if I have to or not. Right? If I have to at least show them honor, but at the end of the day, can't embarrass them in public, and all that. So that I can understand. If a person, does that mitzvah properly, which is very hard to do, right? Very, very hard to do, then she can be granted long life, right, in the next world. The only other command you see that by is shluch haken, shooing away the mother bird, right? Clouded in mystery. A mother bird, lays these eggs, watching over the eggs. So at a certain point, when the mother bird's hovering over the eggs, you push the mother bird away and you take the eggs. Right? It's going to grant long life. And Torah is very complex, as we always say. But the question is, if a person would say, this is cruel and it shouldn't be there, whatever, that's heresy. That 100% is heresy. Because you're saying you know better than God. Does it look cruel? Seemingly to us it would. To most people that seems to be cruel. Why would you take the eggs from the mother bird? Yeah, looks cruel. And a lot of things we see in this world, that look bad. Right? The Chofetz Chaim says everything comes out from heaven is good. Everything that God does is good. Now, why do we see it as bad? Why do we see things as being tragic? Because we can't understand. We can only see what we can see. Right? At some point when someone, has to say, oh, this is a terrible thing or whatever, right? You'll be able to say that in the future. That it's good. That's not bad. That is really good. But, at this point in time, can't do that. It's very hard. Right? You'll be able to say the blessing on what is bad for what is really good. We can't, we don't, it's very hard to do that. Very, very hard to do that in this day and age. Right? And even before it's hard to do that. But we'll see the world a totally different way. So says the Chofetz Chaim, nothing out of heaven that comes from heaven is bad. God is all good. The Christians are going to say, well, where does evil come from? Mr. S, they mistranslate Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. Very convenient, because all bad comes from him. Very good. That's where all bad comes from. So we hold, and don't mistranslate it. God did create evil. So why did he create evil? Give man free will. Give us the ability to make decisions, good decisions, bad decisions, right? Whatever they may be. So, people take this to an unbelievable degree about this idea that, animals have rights. Yeah, the only rights that animals have is that we can't be cruel to them. And if we have a, domesticated animal, a dog, a cat, or whatever, right, there are rules governing that. Right? You can't sit down and eat before they eat. You have to feed them first. Eating in front of them is cruel. Yeah, so there are laws governing this. But animals are used for us. We can use them. Yeah, we can use them for what? For whatever we want. Cure diseases. Make a nice fur hat. Nice fur coat. Alligator shoes. Why not? Because people say that's cruel. It's not cruel. Animals were given to man for us to benefit from. Yeah, see, there are a few questions there. Let's see. Pour the honey in the morning. Yeah, totally off topic here. Yeah. Do we have to wash our hands within footsteps of the bed, or can you wash? You should really wash by your bed. There's an opinion that says, your whole house is considered like one area. So even if you wash in the bathroom, it's 5 steps away. You could do that, right? It's better to wash by your bed. 100% better to wash by your bed. No question. Is it correct that the Ark of Covenants, Urim and Tumim, that's not the Ark of the Covenant, it's something else. Yeah, the lots used by the Kohen Gadol, were lost. That were the lots, wasn't really lots. When someone came to ask the high priest the question, his breastplate lit up. Right? They had to take the letters that lit up to make into what the answer was. Right? Okay. Were they lost before the second temple? The Urim and Tumim we didn't have. The second temple period we did not have them. Yeah. So the answer is they were lost. We didn't have them. That is true. Could be that. So when the Messiah comes, come back. Now the Ark of the Covenant's underneath the Temple Mount somewhere. Right? It's buried somewhere. So, Messiah will come, dig it out. We'll get it, no matter what the Arabs do up there on the Temple Mount. But eventually we're going to dig it out. So the Urim and Tumim we didn't have. That is true. That is true. In the second temple we didn't have it. Someone asks, okay, since we have such a rich and complex oral tradition, how is it possible we lost the knowledge of what many of the unclean animals are? Yeah, translation of names, right? Why would you think? What would you think? They're in exile. Don't you remember they got butchered and slaughtered, right? By the Romans, by the Babylonians, got butchered and slaughtered. So they were sent into exile. By being sent into exile, they contact with people around them, but didn't have contact with other people. So a lot of things got lost. If you're not in your own land, in your own place, and all of a sudden, your temple's been destroyed, the majority of your people have been destroyed, a lot of things got lost. I mean, the Gemara brings down there were 300 halachas lost. Moses didn't remember or forgot or whatever. Right? Well, there were rabbis, the Gemara says, to put them back together. But if we went into exile, we don't have a central authority, no Sanhedrin, no temple, no high priest. Wouldn't you think it'd be a lot worse? It's true. We had some misspellings in some words, but you went according to the majority. It took 3 Sefer Torahs, 3 Torah scrolls, right? And you go according to the majority, how it's spelled. So that got lost. I mean, think of it this way. Imagine what happens during the 19th, 20th century in the former Soviet Union, right? Jews got annihilated. I mean, a lot of people were killed, but just about any form of religion was annihilated as well. Because what do they bring? Well, wanted to bring to the world atheism, right? Amalek. There's no supernaturals, no nothing, right? Atheism. Now imagine, the Jewish people there. What happened to them? You have people that were very strong, kept the Torah mitzvahs. And you have the vast majority wiped off the face of the map spiritually. Yeah. So they went to a place, totally tried to wipe them out, physically and spiritually. They did a good job. They did a great job because you got the majority of Russian Jews today don't know nothing about nothing when it comes to Judaism. Nothing. Because we're all atheists. Now I want to ask, even if there were, religious Jews there, and they're fighting for their lives just to survive, and they have to do things in secret, how is that possible, that Judaism should survive in such a way? Not only that, how would they be able to raise Torah giants in the next generation? They won't be able to. There's no possible way. They're always, looking over their shoulder, from the KGB, as we would say here in Israel, the KGB, or former KGB, whatever. So that's not hard to understand. Because the Jews were thrown out. They were exiled all over. Even when they came back from Babylonia, when they came back and rebuilt the second temple, not everyone came with Ezra. Right? The majority didn't come back. Some came with him, okay. But if you don't have leaders, you don't have Torah scholars passed down to the next generation, you don't have a next generation. And that's what happened in America. Right? You had some people that were religious there, everyone else going off doing their own thing. It was a disaster. Till great rabbis, came out of Europe and built Torah in America. But it took years, for decades, to get to where we are today. The Lakewood Yeshiva, Rav Aaron Kotler, blessed memory, bringing the idea that, people get married, they should sit and learn for X number of years, and that women should want to help and support someone who wants to learn. It's unheard of. In Europe, you never had that because they had to go to work, in their teens. You had the best of the best who were able to sit and learn in yeshiva. Most people, they're so poor. We forget. We don't even remember. Yeah. They were so poor. So, so you had the cream of the crop. Very good. What about everyone else? They said that was how to be taught. I'm saying if you're running from place to place and you have no, menuchas and nefesh, we'll say, you have no way to sit and think and, how are you going to give over to kids? What are you going to do? You're busy looking over your shoulder what's going to be. You don't even know how long you're going to be there. So they were tossed around. They were thrown out. They were murdered, butchered. Right? So now ask the question again. Right? How come they didn't have the knowledge? Ask the majority of American Jews today. Name all the unkosher animals. Name this even better. Name the signs that make an animal kosher. An animal. Or a fish. They'll say, well, shrimp isn't kosher. Okay, very good. It's not kosher. Squid isn't kosher. Oysters aren't kosher. Very good. Why not? What are the signs that make a fish kosher? They won't know. They for sure won't know. What's the answer? Scales and fins. Any fish that has scales will have fins, the Torah says. and that's going to be a kosher animal. I'm sorry, a kosher fish. And a kosher animal has to split its split hooves and has to chew its cud. So there are a handful of animals that don't do that have one sign or the other. Camel has one sign, pig has one sign, sometimes the rabbits have one sign. Good thing, Moses was Dr. Doolittle, right? How did he know all this? But if you would ask people, in the former Soviet Union, what's a kosher animal? They wouldn't. How would they know? There's no possible way they would know. Because they've been shut out to it. They have no way to access it. They have no way to get knowledge. Everything was shut down. Well before the internet. Everything shut down. They have no way to get knowledge. Even if they wanted knowledge. So I had people coming in, smuggling in books, trying to teach them this, that. People going into hiding to do it. Right? But I think that would be pretty clear. Circumstances like that, it'd be a miracle that you remembered anything. That the Torah says. All right, I'll give an example. The Gemara says, this is coming up to the holiday of Shavuos. Outside of Israel, the first days of the holiday, the last days are always 2 days. Right? Rosh Hashanah was 2 days everywhere. But every holiday, first 2 days, last 2 days were 2 days. In Israel, it's only 1 day. Yeah, so Shavuos is coming up with 2 days. Very good. So Hillel fixed the calendar. Right? How did he fix the calendar? Because he understood that we go on a lunar calendar. That means we're missing about 11 and a half days out of the year. Right? That's the difference. Right? That's the difference between lunar calendar and solar calendar. So you got to make up for that. So the problem is Passover has to be in the spring. Right? Sukkot has to be in the fall. So you have to make accommodation. So therefore, 7 out of 19 years is going to be a leap year. Now, by the Muslims, not that we care, but by the Muslims, what do they have? Ramadan, they also go by a lunar calendar. They don't adjust the calendar. So that means Ramadan can be winter, spring, summer, or fall. It doesn't matter to them. But for us, Passover has to be in the spring. Sukkot has to be in the fall. Now, why do I mention that? Right. So the Gemara asks, okay, if Hillel really fixed the calendar for all generations, very good. So why do they have a second day? Why outside of Israel is there a second day? Second day, and the first day is Passover, right? The last day is the Passover, and Sukkot is the same thing, and on Shavuot 2 days. So one reason is Gemara says, so that we keep the same doubt our forefathers had, even though we have the calendar today. Well, there's another reason. Another reason is Rashi brings down, maybe you live in a land and they'll take away your calendar. When they take away your calendar, you won't know when the holidays are. Now, where did that happen? Former Soviet Union? Certainly happened. One of the first things they did. Make sure Jews don't know when the holidays are. Can't calculate. Have no way to do it. Right? So how are they going to know? How would these people know anything about anything? It's called exile. It's called exile. And what happened, in America and other places? Intermarriage. They don't want to learn about Judaism. Intermarriage. Right? So again, someone will say, someone, said this to me in a kosher restaurant. They say, what's the problem with, keeping kosher? No problem with trichinosis today. Like, if you don't, heat up meat and you get sick and tapeworms and this and that. And I said, but that's not why we keep kosher. And by the way, you're eating a bagel, so it has nothing to do with meat. You're like, yeah, whatever, pass us all. Like, they have no clue. They have absolutely no clue. Right? So if the majority of Jews today, 13 million or more, they don't know how to read the Aleph base. They don't know nothing from nothing about Judaism. Why in the world do you think it would be preserved? The only way it's going to be preserved is people learn the Torah and pass it down to the next generation. That's us. No one else is going to be able to do that. So you're right. There were things lost. Right? Laws were lost. Translation of Hebrew words, Hebrew names, yeah, that was also lost. Etc. But, and where things are located. This is very interesting that the Gemara says that a lot of the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash of the temple were taken to Rome. So I heard Rebbe Wine once say, it should be imagine you go to the Vatican, imagine what you find, do a little bit of spring cleaning, imagine what you find, it's definitely there. Some of them are there for sure, some of them are buried here, also. But that's a whole different reason, right? Why they buried so no one would abuse them. So there is one person who's brought down, there is one person in the generation that knows where these things are. One person every generation knows. So that won't be lost. But it makes sense why. Right? Totally makes sense, right? To make sure it doesn't get abused, that's one thing. But again, being in exile, it's amazing anyone, is religious today at all. Not just to mention all the pogroms and Holocaust and different things. It's another issue, right? But if you're gonna tell me, how could these things be lost? I mean, it's very easy to be lost. Extremely easy to be lost, right? Makes perfect sense why they're lost. Because we got tossed around like ragdolls. It's amazing things. More things didn't get lost. But if you're in certain places, there's like no semblance of Judaism at all. Died, disappeared. And if it wouldn't be for Orthodox Jews, totally disappeared. As we always say. You want to tell me, Reform Conservative got all the numbers, or progressive, whatever you want to call them, they got all the numbers. They're all disappearing. And they're intermarried by 70%, 60%, 70%. They're all being wiped off the face of the map. They don't know nothing from nothing. Nothing. And what they think they know, they don't know. So now you're going to ask, what happened? What do you mean, what happened? The Jews got decimated, physically and spiritually. So things got lost. They couldn't just check things out, go to Rabbi Dr. Google, get the information. People were isolated. They weren't necessarily living in big Jewish communities when they were thrown out. Right? I mean, some communities formed and different things, but, a lot of people got, in the middle of nowhere. Right? So that would be the answer. That would be the answer. Were they not preserved either in the Talmud? It was preserved. That's why the Talmud was written down. It was supposed to be done orally. Very good. It was supposed to be passed down orally, but what happened? People got dispersed. And they felt that if they didn't write it down, at any level, it for sure would have been forgotten. And that is true. If we wouldn't have recollection that had been written down, how would we know what any of the rabbis said or anything? We totally disappeared. We wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have any resemblance of anything. Right? But it wasn't supposed to be written down. The whole point was it was supposed to be taught orally. It's supposed to be passed down orally. So if that's the case, or you're living in a place where you're getting tossed around, and persecuted and this and that, you're not gonna have time to write it down. Right? So you're not gonna have time to do it orally. You gotta write it. Again, isn't it better to be done orally when you give over something orally, verbally? Doesn't that mean, you're going to remember what it is? Because you have to give it over to someone else? Sure. But how many people are going to be able to do that under those circumstances? That's why they gave permission to write it down. It wasn't something like, this is a great thing and let's do it. They had no choice. Right? That's something they had no choice. And if they wouldn't have done it that way, it would have been lost, for sure. Nothing to talk about would have been lost. Right? Again, where do you think they would have got documents from if they didn't write it down? They had to write it down. That's what we have. But again, they said, oh, did you hear something about this? Or did you hear something about that? Or, something else. So then it got organized, got written down. Otherwise, all these things, all these arguments, that we see in the Talmud brought down back and forth, this and that, wouldn't have been any of them, or very few of them, under the circumstances. Yeah. Someone asks or says they can make limited decisions. Okay, animals. Animals can make limited decisions. You're right. That's not called free will. Right? Mentioned before, if they have the ability, decide they want to eat, they don't want to eat this and that, very good. That doesn't mean they have free choice. It's instinct. Right? They can make decisions based on data available. Okay. But again, some will say, well, some animals can show emotion. Okay. So what? Even showing emotion, where'd they get the ability to do that? Because, hey, maybe they learned it from us, maybe. But where'd they get the ability to do that? It's instinct. It's DNA, right? It's their instinct, sorry. Right? It's their instinct. Right? That's not free will. Just because they could, do certain things, whatever, it's based on what their soul is telling them to do, what their DNA is telling them to do. But it's not free will. Certainly not free will. The Torah says, God breathed the spirit of life. What's the spirit of life? He gave us the Ruach Mamalalo. What's the Ruach Mamalalo? The ability to speak. Right in Aramaic. Mamalalo means to speak. Animals also speak. We don't necessarily understand animals. Right? We're not, Dr. Doolittle, etc. But they have the ability to speak. They speak their own language. Very good. Even if they speak their own language, it's instinct. Nothing more than instinct. What constitutes cruelty to animals? Hunting. The Maral. More than 400 or 500 years ago. Prague. Yeah, has a, the Maral, the Nota Yehuda, a few hundred years ago, has a response. And in his response, one of the questions is, can you go hunting for fun? And the answer is no. Hunting for fun is cruel. Right? If you're starving, it's one thing. If you're sending out dogs or whatever, to scare animals and try and trap them, that's cruel. Right? That's cruel. What else consists of cruelty to an animal? I don't know. You go up to a dog and kick it in the head for no reason. Or you take it and throw it somewhere. That's cruel. Right? I can go into other examples. Right? I'm saying, but the examples, the PETA activists or PET activists, whatever you call them, using their skin or whatever, that's not cruel. That has nothing to do with cruelty. And it's using them for our own ability. So, cruel also could be you eat in front of them, you don't feed them. You have to feed them. Right? You have to feed them first. If you eat in front of them, that's cruel. Not feeding them, treating them poorly. Again, they don't have to live a better life than you, but, within reason. But, you can't, like, smack them upside the head. You can't, unless your life's in danger or something like that. You can't be cruel to them. You gotta take care of them. If you have a domesticated animal, you gotta take care of them. If the animal's sick, that's the whole question. How far do you have to go to save it? Right? I mean, you don't have to go through heroics. If animals dying, you don't have to spend, thousands of dollars to save it. Right? And go ahead and die. I mean, it's cruel. You'll say it's, part of the family, this, okay. But, you don't have to go out of your way to save it, per se. Somebody asks, are humans who do not follow Torah considered not human behavior? They're not considered human. Well, my Rebbe would say, there are plenty of people out there live like animals, die like animals. Yeah. If you have no moral compass, what does that mean? If you have nothing telling you inside, 100% of the time, what the moral thing to do, what the right thing to do is, are you human? I don't think you're human, right? I wouldn't say you're human. You look like a human, you act like a human, right? But essentially, you're just going according to what? Base desires. Morality is relative. Not based on anything absolute. It's relative. Because, what's the person going to say? Person's going to say their motto is, eat, drink, and be merry, lest tomorrow I die. That's going to be the motto. Nothing else. Whatever their stomach tells them. Whatever their heart tells them, right? Torah says, don't go after your heart. Don't go after your eyes. Applies to Jews, not necessarily to non-Jews. Right? We've spoken about that. But listen, a person can do animalistic behavior, but it's their benefit. Yeah, you have to eat. You have to drink. Isn't that like acting like an animal? You're going to say no, within reason. Now, does that mean you should be a glutton or you should be overweight? Right? Or you should be an alcoholic? No, within reason. Right? But again, if your goal is just to eat as much as you can, or drink as much as you can, or, do other things, then you're just going according to your animalistic desire. Right? So, plenty of people out there. Plenty. That's what they do. They do whatever their mind tells them to do. Or they do whatever their heart tells them to do. So essentially, they're animals. Right? They're not going to be too happy you call them that, but that's what they are. They're going to say, no, I have family, I have feelings, and I raised a family, I'm doing that. Okay, so what's important to you? How much you eat, where you go, what you do. Right? Are they acting in a moral way according to the Torah? No. Let's make no mistake. There are people out there can be the nicest people. They can be the nicest people. The question is, are they considered the nicest people in God's eyes? Are they doing what God wants? If they're not doing what God wants, I don't care how nice they are. They can be liable for death penalty. They desecrate Shabbos in public. Yeah. They can be the nicest of people. Yeah. In God's eyes, they stink to high heaven. Worse than stinking to high heaven, they deserve to die. That's not so nice. Right? But again, how do we look at the world? Is God the one in charge? God is the one in charge. Right? 100%, he's in charge. You have to look at what, you have to look through the eyes of the Torah. There are plenty of very, well-meaning people and this and that, but in God's eyes, you want to tell me they don't speak Lashon Hara? Guarantee they speak Lashon Hara. Want to tell me they don't curse? Guarantee that they curse. I mean, you want to tell me they don't eat treif? They eat treif. They do, everything against the Torah. But they're the nicest of people. That doesn't matter. How are they looked at in God's eyes? That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. Yeah? So it's not a question, you think this, it has nothing to do with what I think. Nobody cares what I think. Right? God doesn't care what I think. We have to care what he thinks. And if he says this is not good for us, and it's going to cause us to take 2 steps backwards, then that's bad. Then 100%, that's bad. But people get caught up, the person's so nice. People could be the nicest people in the world and still deserve to die. Still deserve death penalty. In God's eyes, not my eyes. Right? I'm just saying what the Torah says, what the commentaries tell us. Right? This is nothing personal either way. But if they're doing against what God says, they're in trouble. No matter how nice they are. And nothing to do with anything. They're in serious trouble. Then someone says, okay, when we follow Torah, we stop animalistic behavior. Some. Yeah. But it's still animalistic behavior we're always going to do. Eating, drinking, we're going to do. Otherwise, we'll die. Going to the bathroom, we're going to do. Otherwise, we'll die. If a person's married, being with their spouse, that they're going to do. That's animalistic behavior. Yeah, but we can sanctify it, use it in the right way. Right? We'll keep this clean. Right? So basically, when you're going in the right path, you can sanctify the physical. You can eat something, make a blessing. Drink something, make a blessing. Sanctify the physical. Yeah. So even though it's an animalistic behavior, because we have to eat or drink, we have to live. Right? So if that's true, then we are sanctifying the soul. Just like the body. Can a person, we'll see in Leviticus chapter 19 one day when I'm about 92, we'll get there. Right? That says you have to be holy because I'm holy. So the Ramban there says, what does it mean to be holy? It means you're allowed to eat, you're allowed to drink. It doesn't mean you're allowed to be a glutton or you're allowed to be an alcoholic. Not allowed to do that. But it's permissible to eat and drink. Okay, very good. But who says I'm allowed to abuse it? You're not. So even though we have animalistic side of us, everybody does, right? Everyone has that, what we call the nefesh behemoth, the lowest form of the soul, right? Which is the animalistic side. Everybody has it, Jews and non-Jews, right? We all have it. So the question is, do we sanctify it or not? Or do we just do whatever we do to survive, right? Plenty of Jews out there, they eat, they don't eat kosher, they don't make blessings, but they live. They live. That's, is that going to stop animalistic behavior? No. Because they don't think it's an issue. Well, think I'll do what I want. Again, they'll say, like, you calling me an animal? Like, you think you're any better? You call me an animal? As my Rebbe would say. They have no sanctification in their lives. They have no morality in their lives. They have no moral compass. So they're animals. Right? No way to say it better. They're animals. Right? They live like animals. They die like animals. I'll give an example. I was waiting for somebody. I remember years ago. I told the story before. Two women walked by, which, okay, wasn't really paying attention. I saw one of them, or maybe both of them. One of them for sure had a miniskirt and punked out red hair. They had to be this woman had to be at least in her 60s. Easy. How could I tell? Because her face was shriveled up. I'm like, are you serious? Dressed to kill in a miniskirt, like 65 years old. You got to be kidding. That's animalistic behavior. Yeah, that's still trying to stay young. Well, too bad. You can't. Age creeps up on everyone. Just the way of the world. Yeah, someone asks, okay, Adam and Eve, not understanding pride, eating forbidden. Yeah. Because they didn't have understanding. They had understanding. Who says Adam and Eve didn't have any understanding? God gave them one command. That command was not eat from the tree, right? Do not eat from one tree, right? What was that tree? The tree of knowledge. Yeah, the snake convinces Eve to eat from the tree, and you're going to be like God. He doesn't want you to be like him. So, and not only that, even if you touch the tree, you're not going to die, blah, blah, blah. He convinced Eve to eat from the tree. Now, they were given one command. You can eat from everything you want, but not this. Now, they understood that if they eat from it, they're not allowed to. They didn't know necessarily what death was, so to speak. It doesn't matter if they didn't have Leviticus Chapter 7 or whatever. It's irrelevant. They had knowledge between good and evil. They knew instinctively what was good, what was bad. Give an example. Let's say they walk in the forest, they see a big pit. They see a big hole. Now they understand. If they fall in that hole, potentially they can get hurt. They understood that. Many things they understood. Yeah, it's just that the evil inclination wasn't part of them. It was outside of them. Yeah, so if it was outside of them, they understood. They did have understanding. People think, oh, Cro-Magnon man, this and that. Adam was the greatest creation in the history of man. No pun intended. Because God made him himself. It wasn't like started like this, this animal or whatever, and evolved or got more knowledge and this and that, in all the old books that'll tell you, then they started with stones and they made fire and then they did this. He had all this knowledge to him. He's given plenty of knowledge. It wasn't like they're just walking around like a bunch of idiots, and be mentally challenged. They only knew one thing, not to eat from the tree, but they didn't know what that meant. They knew for sure what that meant. And they weren't allowed to eat from it. The repercussions of what death was and this and that, maybe that they didn't understand, and the severe repercussions per se. But I mean, Adam understood. I'll tell you how far it goes. Adam understood that if he eats something, or if he does something, let's say better, if he does something good, that's going to elevate the body and the soul. It's going to make it stronger. If he does something wrong, he's going to debase the body and he's going to debase the soul. Now let's understand, right? Let's understand. Adam understood that. It's very sophisticated. Now, God says you're right. And then, the Medrash says, or it's brought down in the Gemara, that God calls him a heretic. What do you mean? He's the greatest of all creation. Why is he called a heretic? Because Adam explained. He said, but if you put evil inside of us, or let's say better, if we put evil inside of us, we'll be able to get unbelievable reward by overcoming our evil inclination. On the other hand, if we do the wrong thing, we can also pay a severe price. Very good. God said you're 100% right. There's only one problem. What's the obvious one problem? God said, don't do it. God said, I didn't want you to do it. But you thought you wanted to reinvent the wheel. You thought you knew better. So then God had to go to plan B. Plan B was death. Death never should have been. Wasn't a Jewish concept. Didn't God understand man could have eaten from the tree? Sure. He knows past, present, future. He knew that. Even so, he created man. Even so, but we have the ability to reach unbelievable spiritual levels by overcoming the evil inclination. At the same time, a person can give into the evil inclination and fall flat in their face. Could also happen. Yeah, but God says, you're a heretic for saying such a thing, and doing such a thing. Why? Because that's not what I wanted for the world. Couldn't God have stopped him? Yeah, he could have. But God gave him free choice. God for sure gave him free choice. But he had the ability to either go in the right way, the wrong way. Chose the wrong way. Okay. Right? But again, what was Adam saying? This is the way to get unbelievable reward straight away, right? At a very high level. Good. But he could have lost everything also. But in either case, even God agreed with him. He said, that's not what I created the world for. Right? Totally didn't create the world for that. Throw out the animals, but also Shem will demand an accounting for every life that we take. Yeah, so what? Right, that means we should always ensure that there's justification for every animal we kill. I don't think so. I don't think we have to justify anything. Are we allowed to kill insects? Yeah, they bother us. Right? They bother us. Obviously, if they're a danger, let's say someone gets stung by a bee, and it would be dangerous. You can kill them straight away, even on Shabbos. You don't even have to trap them. You can kill them. You're talking about, should a person go around, like stepping on ants, killing them, this and that? No. They don't have any reason to. They don't have any reason to. It's not, that's a different issue. Right? If it's for protection, I can do whatever I want. If it's not for my protection, right? Could I take could I take an animal, just kill it for the sake of killing it? No. You're not allowed to do that. Well, again, if it's a danger, it's one thing. If it's not a danger, who says I'm allowed to? You have to take an accounting of that. People do, terrible things. Yeah, again, you don't like certain things around. Very good. Yeah. Could I kill them? Yeah. You don't want them around. Very good. You can kill them. But you have to do it, you can't do it in a cruel way. Let's say you had a problem with I don't know, rats. Rats, can be problematic. So there are ways to get rid of them. Right? Again, it's like rip them to shreds and kill them. I mean, if you had to, I guess you could. Have it be humane. Even if you have to. Even if you have to kill them. But again, killing animals for no reason, that'd be forbidden. Is the person going to have to take an accounting of that? Sure. We can be cruel to animals. You got a person that has a problem in their house with ants. You have to put stuff around so they don't come back or they die from it. You're allowed to. Right? That's not a problem. Yeah, you see an ant outside. Can you just squash it? For what? What's the purpose of doing that? That'd be cruel. So that you have to take an accounting for. I wouldn't say every animal necessarily. It depends what you did. It depends what you did. If you have no way to justify why you did it, yeah, you're in trouble. Even by a flea. you would be in trouble. It doesn't give you right to do whatever you want, right? That's what I would say on that. Those that because I like to torture cats. Yeah, I remember as a kid, some people would do things to frogs. Yeah, it's cruel. If it's cruel, it's forbidden. No question. There's no point. You're just doing it to have fun. That's forbidden. If they're a nuisance, you want to get rid of them. Okay, it's a different issue. But just to go outside and torture them or kill them, you'll have to answer for that. You don't have to do that. Or just kill animals for the sake of killing them. You have to have a purpose. If you have no purpose, it'd be forbidden. Is domesticated animals cruel because they should live on their own? No, it's not considered cruel. The question, there's a question: should a person have pets? That's a whole nother question. Some people, for some people, certainly for therapy, it's good to have a pet, right? I think they have pet therapy or whatever. That would be considered a good thing. But in general, having non-kosher animals around is a problem. And certainly, let's say certain animals, let's say a woman lives by herself, shouldn't have a dog there, or potentially other animals. Yeah. So in the outdoor Orthodox community, you don't see animals. You don't see people that have animals usually. You usually see the modern Orthodox community. You'll see people with dogs, cats. I'm not saying farms. I'm just saying, let's say domesticated animals. Should you let them live on their own? Again, it depends how important it is for a person to have a pet. Yeah. I always tell my kids, come on, your siblings are your pets. They don't necessarily like that. But listen, in the other Orthodox community, we don't have pets. We don't have pets. Is it better to leave them, let them go on their own? Probably. Again, when it comes to like dogs and cats, talking about stray ones, it's one thing, right? But who says we have to take them in, right? Now you're gonna say, but if they're left on their own, you see these animals get abused and they don't survive well and different things. So who says it? Again, even if that's true, even if that would be true, is that something I need to worry about? I need to worry about getting saving stray animals. I got plenty of other things to worry about. I don't again, animals are cute and furry and this and that, and I think people have gone way overboard. Way overboard. I remember somebody's, dog got mauled by a fox. Yeah, it's tragic. Okay. They love this dog, whatever. Well, people made it out like, it's like a member of the family. It's like, should be saying Kaddish. The mourner's prayer. No matter how long the dog, you've had the dog and this and that. Okay, it's a cruel way to go. I get it. But at the end of the day, people were like giving condolences like it's a member of the family. A dog is a dog. And a cat's a cat. You say, hey, man's best friend, this, that, forget man's best friend. No offense, I was also a dog lover, back in the day. Okay. Yeah. And then you get attached to it. Then they get sick, then they end up dying after however many years or, whatever it is. Again, I think people make way, way too much out of it. But I saw that, that they're like they were mourning. They were like in mourning. So someone said they brought their dog here. They brought their dog here. They're here for a few months. Once a week they go to a dog park. Someone takes them out. It's like dog. I don't say dog therapy, but like meet other dogs, hang out with other dogs. Whatever it does for them. Yeah. So I say, it's good for them to meet other dogs, this and that. I mean, I was burst out laughing. I'm like, you got to be kidding. I'm in the wrong profession. Should have been a dog psychologist. That's where that's where the big money is. It's insane. It's like you're saying, like, a dog has to go to play group. Like once a week, twice a week. I get it. Let them go out, meet other dogs, hang out, this and that. be able to run around and with other dogs. I get it. It's a little bit wacko. You know, my opinion. I don't think I'm alone opinion here. I think it's way too much. Yeah, dog needs that kind of therapy. I can understand it's good, whatever, but like, I think it's a bit, I think it's a bit much. Like someone said, "Oh, you can make fun of it." I said, "I will make fun of it because it's stupid." I think 100% it's stupid. It's a dog. It's one of the dog stays at home. Yeah, you take it out, 2 days a week so it can meet other dogs and socialize. I mean, it's kind of insane. But they'll think you're like, closed-minded bigot because you're not so open-minded because, dogs are people too. Dogs have rights. They should be able to go to a dog park, right? And socialize. What's the big deal? Why are you going to make fun of it? Right? Why do you think? It sounds silly. It sounds silly. They have dog psychologists. Make the dog more outgoing. I don't know. Like I said, I'm in the wrong profession. It's insane. A dog is not a human. Experiments they did with cats. They get the cat stand on 2 feet and hold the tray and this and that. But guess what? A cat is a cat. And its instinct is to chase mice and eat them or play with them or whatever. Right? They did an experiment like that. Once they take out the mouse, what does the cat do? Drops everything and runs after the mouse. Because that's the nature of a cat. That's the nature of a cat. That's what cats do. And a dog. When I was in ninth grade, I think ninth grade, anyone who had pets, we were told, go home and like scream and yell and this and that, and see what the pet does. It's like, you stupid, this, that, whatever. And they're like, like, that's who they are. You have to understand that's who they are. That's who they are. So, you gotta say they have rights to a point. To a point, they have rights. To a point, for sure, they have rights. You can't be cruel to them. You got to feed them first. There are a number of things, but that they're like part of the family. They're like part of the family. It's a bit much. Someone asks if an animal isn't dependent on you, i.e., he's not your pet. You have no obligation to feed it or save it, right? Right. What's your obligation? And if you see an animal drowning, I have to run in and save it. Some people will. Some people will. To each their own, but no obligation. A dog is a piece of meat. It's a piece of meat. You say, but a dog has feelings. Okay. So what if they do? They're programmed. They are programmed. So what are you supposed to do? You have an obligation? No. Why would you have an obligation to jump in and save them? First, how could you let a dog drown? You want to know? I go like this. Okay. What can I do? It's raging water. I should jump in and save the dog? No, some people absolutely would. I don't think there's any question. I think some people for sure would. Obligation? No. Definitely don't have an obligation. Well, some people would say if you see a dog drowning, you save it. You absolutely save it. But there's no obligation, none. What's a good response to eat, drink, and make us tomorrow I die? What's the correct response? The only correct response I would say is, okay, so you're just eating to live and living to eat. You just want to do whatever your stomach, whatever your moral compass tells you. Okay. They're not going to listen anyway, but, most likely. But if someone says, well, I just want to enjoy life. Well, how are you going to do that? Life's very complex. How are you going to, enjoy life? It's very complex. A lot of things that, that are very hard. So what does a person do? They dull themselves to death, whether through food, through entertainment, drugs, alcohol, other things. They just want to be happy. Who says I have to live a limited life? Who says, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that? So then you get in the question, well, are you trying to say the Torah's not true? Do you have evidence that it's not true? But again, most people at that point, they're not interested. They're not interested whether it's true or not true. They just want to do whatever they want to do. So whatever argument you make, you can say, wow, it's so much fun to learn Torah. It's so much fun, to keep mitzvahs. I have to show them why. I have to show them why it is. But you have to remember, they're probably not so interested. Right? They're probably not going to be so interested. But that's what I would answer. I say, wow, so many things we do that's so meaningful. You can have direct connection to God. They're like, oh, God this, God that. It's like, again, it's like trying to start a Jeep with a 9-volt. For the most part, it's probably a waste of time to even answer anything because it's not going to get you anywhere. You have to get someone who's like really thinking. Most people, most important question they'll ask in their lifetime, they put ketchup or mustard on their hot dog. That's it. No one else asking anything really serious. Because life is cruel. Right? Life is cruel. Someone asked, Torah talks about blessings. Does it mean personal? The person's getting a blessing as far as material or spiritual. It's definitely spiritual for sure. Right? You might get a material blessing. Right? It might be a physical blessing as well. Right? But usually when you talk about, blessing and the curse, what's the blessing? Keeping Torah. Now, keeping Torah, there are physical things we have to do, spiritual things we have to do. Right? But I would say it's more spiritual. If it's a material blessing like parts of Chukos, I said, you get your rain, whatever, why were some rabbis poor? Plenty of rabbis that are poor. Yeah, that's not a contradiction. It's totally not a contradiction because that's going to be their test in life. Someone who's rich, their test in life is going to be, their test in life is going to be, are they thankful for what they have? Are they going to help others? And for someone who doesn't have money, are they going to be thankful for the little that they have? But usually money and Torah don't go hand in hand. Usually someone's got a lot of money, they're not keeping Torah mitzvahs. Right? Now, we say it's part of grace after meals, we say, a righteous person never lacking, you see, but, plenty of righteous people don't have money. Right? So it's not a question of lacking. Because the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, who's considered rich? Someone who's samech b'chelko. He's happy with what he has. He's not looking at what someone else has. Right? So yeah, if we do the right thing, we'll get physical blessing, we'll get rain, we'll get food, very good. Right? We'll have food, we'll have water, very good. But even if someone is poor, even if someone is poor, it does not mean that the material blessing for them is to have money or to have significant, let's say, significant amount of money. Right? Why? It's not good for them. Either it's not good for them, or their test in life is to be thankful even for the little that they have, but they'll be able to overcome that. Why? Because they know what's the most important thing in life is not money. The most important thing in life is keeping Torah mitzvahs. Whether they have more, you have less, doesn't matter. You're not taking it with you. Right? Gemara says, Talmud Chacham has no manners. Dog on the street is better than them. Right. If that's the case, why don't you focus on Musar? Who says they have to? Who says they have to focus the whole time on Musar? They have to focus sometime. I would agree. Right? Right? A rabbinical scholar who is not moral or has no ethics is worse than a dog. Why? Because it's held to a higher standard, much higher standard. That's true. But, a yeshiva is not going to focus their entire time on Musar. That was what the Vilna Gaon had, and Rav Chaim Volozhin writes, Nefesh Chaim, when it came out against Hasidim way back. And the reason is because all they did was learn Musar. You couldn't find one entire Talmud anywhere in the city. All they learned was Musar. If all you learn is Musar, that's a problem. Doesn't mean you can't learn more Musar, more ethics, doesn't mean that. But that's not going to be the main part of the curriculum. going to be a very small part of the curriculum. The most important part of the curriculum is learning. It's Gemara, commentaries, early commentaries, later commentaries. Yeah, that's going to be the most important thing. What about Chumash? Isn't Chumash important? Yeah, but that, again, it's not going to be the main focus. Can't be the main focus. Yeah, you have to know Chumash also. Got to find time to learn it also. Muslim's not going to be the main part of your learning. Should we judge Judaism based on the acts of Jews? No. Right? If no, why the concepts such as Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem? Very simple. Because don't mix up Jews and Judaism. Just because Jews do things, even if they're Orthodox Jews, doesn't mean it's right. 100% doesn't mean, doesn't mean it's right. There are concepts, desecration of God's name and sanctification of God's name. Very good. Yeah. Some people will do it, some people won't do it, but that's on the basis of Judaism. If we have to do it, we'll do it. Meaning sanctify God's name, give up your life when you have to. Right? For the big three, either immorality, murder, or idolatry. Right? A Jew or non-Jew put a gun to your head and say, bow down to this guy in a stick. Right? A reference to JC or some little fat guy, Mr. Buddha himself. Probably won't call him fat, so right, but it's a big mitzvah to make fun of idolatry. You gotta give up your life. Right? That's sanctification of God's name. Right? If a Jew does something wrong and other people are going to learn out from him, even though it's not the technical definition of desecration of God's name, that's bad. Right? That's called the Chilul Hashem. That's bad. Right? So it depends. It depends what it is. There are these concepts because we have to act in a certain way. But that doesn't mean what Jews do is necessarily right. Forget about desecration of God's name or not. Right? That doesn't play a role necessarily over here. We have an obligation to be the best we can be. Yeah. Do we make mistakes? Yes. Does that mean we're perfect? No. But again, what Jews do doesn't necessarily mean doesn't mean what they're doing is right. But there are individual things, if you're not going to judge, a Jew by what he does, we do. We certainly do. God's going to judge it. We're also very quick to judge. Sometimes right, maybe sometimes wrong, the way we see it. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're held to a higher standard. 100%. We're held to a much higher standard. So therefore, individual things, yeah. But, just because Jews do something doesn't mean it's right. Someone once told me, a secular Jew once told me this, I saw a Orthodox Jew in a casino. I said, okay. They said, what were they doing? I said, probably gambling, having a good time. They're like, no, but according to religion, I love how secular Jews say that. According to your religion, isn't that forbidden? I said, yes. So why are they doing that? I said, I don't know. Probably because they want to gamble. But it's forbidden. Okay, so why do people smoke? Why are people overweight? I have to answer. I have enough trouble answering for myself. I'm not going to answer for someone else. That's the whole thing. Just because Jews do something, even if they're Orthodox Jews, doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Right, 100%. 2 weeks ago, guy learned steering wheel just to avoid hitting a stray dog. 4 people, including the driver, died. All right, listen. A person doesn't want to have to kill a dog. Okay. If you have no choice, you run over the dog. What are you going to do? Right? But that's going to be the first reaction. That's a very good point. That's going to be the first reaction. You don't want to, you want to, listen, if it's a much bigger animal, then you got to damage the car for sure. Right? You can't go straight on at it. But, if it's a dog, what's the first thing you're going to want to do? Is you want to turn the wheel to make sure you don't hit the dog. Very good. But then you see, you killed the driver and killed everyone else there. Right? It's kind of God's irony in a certain way. So I would say on that, just, a Torah perspective is, listen, you do what you can not to injure the dog, but not for the sake of your own life. So you can say, well, maybe the person didn't know, it's a split-second reaction. They didn't know the car flipped over and whatever, it's, to save the life of the dog. But guess what? Dog might have been spared and they all died. Waste of life. But obviously they were supposed to die, and that's how they died. But think about it. Their life is less valuable than the life of a dog. Because, I get it. They don't want to kill the dog. Okay. But in such a situation, if you see the split second, like there's nothing on the left, nothing on the right, like it can be like really, serious danger. You hit the dog. It's tragic. Okay. a person may be traumatized, you hit and smash the dog, the dog died, but what would a person rather have, dog die or yourself? See, that, and again, most people would probably do that. Most people would probably do that. Split-second reaction. You swerve not to hit the dog. Very good. Yeah, that's not the right reaction. The right reaction is you hit the dog. If you can avoid the dog, very good. But in such a case, 4 people die. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, let me see other questions here. Remember reading, we should harness our animals, excite, subdue it, right? In other words, there are things that are permissible to do. But again, you want to do it in the right way. You want to harness it and channel it, certainly in the right way. Someone here mentions also read in Zohar that what? Why don't you take off the yoke of other kings and put the yoke of kingdom on Hashem? Yeah. Someone here mentions Christians' complaints. I don't have the 9 fruits of the Spirit. Okay, so what? And people say a lot of things, people say, well, you're going to find out forever, this is going to happen, that's going to happen because you don't believe in JC. Okay, so I'll take my chances. But I'm not misinterpreting what the Torah says. I'm not taking the Torah out of context. Like you guys, I got a lot of evidence. You want to see it? I can stick it right back in their face. Right? But, and someone tell me that, yeah, family members say, yeah, if you could only believe in JC, things would be better. I don't know about that. It wouldn't be better for them in other ways, because that's idolatry. Right? But see, you're doing all these laws and that, and life is so hard. Right? But so they have a point. 100%, 100%, they have a point. That's true. Life is harder, but why is life harder? Why is life harder in general? Because you're held to a different standard now. You want to be a Jew, you're held to a different standard now. It's a whole different thing. That's why life is harder. Yeah, if you believe in JC, it'd be easier. Who says? Right? Who says that's going to be the case? They say, oh, try it, let's see. But again, we're looking at it from 2 totally different places here. Time invented by God, creating the earth, and who else created time? God, God created time, but God's outside of time. Right? God knows everything, past, present, future. And what's the meaning of don't? Why did he put there to test us? Everything's there to test. Yeah. So then someone asks, okay, is reward come from restraining? Depends what it is. Right? Or from not doing it. Some things you get rewards by not giving in to even inclination, not speaking Lashon Hara. Other things you got to do positive actions. Right? You got to do the mitzvah. But again, doesn't mean you get reward in this world. Some say you get the reward or part of the mitzvah in this world if you do it with great joy. But usually reward is going to be in the next world, because we say schar mitzvah b'ha'al al maleka, right? The reward of a mitzvah we don't get in this world in general. Someone there asked, I mentioned yesterday, that we only have a certain amount of words in this world, right? It's also part of time. 120 years, right? Refraining from blood have anything to do with time? No, doesn't have anything to do with that. But I would say again, we are part of this world, right? So if we're part of this world, a day is 24 hours, right? So if a day is 24 hours and we are given a certain amount of words to speak, if you use up all those words, all things being equal, you won't be in this world. Right? So it's part of this world, it's part of time. God set up time. Right? God made, when he created the world. Right? But God is outside of time. God is outside of time and outside of place, because God is everywhere. Right? So there is no such thing as God being part of time. Time in God's eyes doesn't exist. Right? One day in God's eyes could be 1,000 years, could be 5,000 years, could be 1,000,000,000 years. Yeah, but God is outside of time, right? Totally outside of time. Why do they suggest that blood be covered with dust? Oh, so that I'm going to speak about. That we're going to get to. I'm going to get to it today, but that blood, can't be in the open, right? So if you kill an animal, right, that's going to be used to eat, you got to cover it, right? Blood has, the whole question. It's a good question, right? We are going to deal with it. That why blood essentially has to be covered. Food preparation for koshering, if blood gets on the garment, is that a problem? Nope. That's definitely if blood gets on the garments. No. I mean, some of it has to be covered for sure. That's a mitzvah of covering it, but otherwise, if it got on the garment, it shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. Here someone says, funny how they add, your to everything, right? Christian and secular friends, right? Your Sabbath, you're this, you're that, right? Yeah, they got nothing better to do, but yeah, it is kind of ironic in a lot of ways. I would definitely agree. How is that blood atones the soul when it's placed on an altar? Why would thou feed their child blood? No idea. Right? Why African tribes, so if you see what the Rambam over here says, it's not so hard to understand. Right? They're doing it to find out the future. Right? Why they give their kids blood? I don't know. You have to ask an African tribes, maybe it's to give them strength, give them power, because blood is called the soul, right? Blood is essentially called, centuries called the soul of a person or the soul of an animal. So therefore, it's like you're ingesting the whole, whole part of the animal, right? The whole animal itself, as if like you're ingesting the soul. So why would my guess, any good as anyone else's, why would a African tribe want their kid to eat it? Maybe for power. I don't know. Maybe get that power of that animal. Maybe. How that blood atones for the soul when it's placed on the altar. Very good. Yeah. Torah doesn't tell me how. Torah just tells me that it works. Right? Because again, soul, nefesh tachas nefesh. The soul, the soul of the animal, soul of the person. Right? So the soul of the animal, i.e. the blood, atones for what a person did. Why? We explained that since the soul of an animal comes from the blood, and therefore a person did something wrong, really they're liable for death penalty, let's say for certain things. So therefore the blood of the animal goes on the altar in order to atone. That's what I would say. So unclean animal blood is spilled on the ground doesn't need to be covered with dirt. Unclean animals, no. Unclean animals, the animal dies, blood comes out of it. It's only by kosher animals, right? It's only by kosher animals that are slaughtered. Yeah, let's say kosher animal dies. I don't know, I don't know, try to jump over a fence, right? And let's say by a cow is an utter disaster. Yeah. So now it's a treifa. So now it's considered, it's going to die within 12 months, right? So let's say that animal dies, right? Let's say the animal dies on the spot. We'll make it easy, right? Dies on the spot, had a heart attack, had who knows what. Blood starts coming out of the animal. Yeah, you can't eat it. Jew can't eat it for sure. It's the blood that comes out of the animal. So, it's only going to be covered if it's slaughtered. If it's not slaughtered, you don't cover it. Right? Is that similar to people must be buried underground? No. Animals, animals you can throw in a fire. They don't have to be buried in the ground. Only a human has to be buried in the ground. A human has 10 times more holiness and impurity than any animal. When a human dies, it's the highest form of impurity. When an animal dies, if the temple existed, okay, a person touched it, it's a certain level of impurity. Yeah, it doesn't even come close to human impurity. Yeah, human impurity is the highest level. The highest level. Yeah, an animal's an animal. Right? Technically it doesn't have to go on the ground, technically. Well, I don't know what else you do with it. Throw it in the junkyard. You could incinerate it. You could burn it up. What else you do with it? So people bury it, right? Is it the holiness of the animal? I mean, maybe some people would say no obligation. Certainly no obligation. Right? I say the same thing by a non-Jew. Right? They can get cremated. Why shouldn't they be able to get cremated? It only says by a Jew you have to go in the ground. Not by a non-Jew. We brought death to the world. Right? Now I might say, well, going back to the ground was given, that was a command given to all mankind. But it doesn't apply to non-Jews. They could, if I remember correctly, they can be cremated also. They don't necessarily have to go in the ground. Yeah, so again, it's only a clean animal that you slaughter. You ritually slaughter to eat it. Then the blood has to get covered. That we're gonna speak about. That we're definitely gonna speak about. But if that animal, cow, an ox, whatever, I don't know, got injured and blood comes out of it, I don't have to cover the blood. Definitely not. But only if you slaughter it, right? That would be the only case. Only if you slaughter it. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So no. 1 second. Someone asks, "How do people even know to eat blood?" What do you mean? Everybody eats blood today. I don't even think there's a question. I don't even think there's a question because non-Jews, 100%, and their slaughterhouses are not draining all the blood. They for sure don't drain all the blood, right? Even if they wash the animal down, it doesn't mean there's no blood there, right? What did Jews do? They put a tremendous amount of salt. That's why Jewish meat is extremely salty because it takes out the blood, right? Jews are not allowed to eat blood, but non-Jews, any other any slaughterhouse, by non-Jews, they're not taking out all the blood. It's a guarantee people are eating blood, right? People say maybe they wash it down so much they don't need blood either. They don't salt it, so how to get all the blood out? There can still be blood in there. I don't think there's any question, right? Again, blood can be used for idolatry, idolatrous practices, sorcery. Blood could be used for a lot of things. Blood could be used for, right? And to eat it and whatever, right? I wouldn't say in the Western world necessarily so common. I guarantee in other places it's very common, right? It's probably more common, right? Certain places in Africa, I'm sure, is very common, or a place where they do sorcery, I'm sure it's very common. It's much more common. In the Western world, people eating blood today, directly, no, right? But meat has blood in it for sure. I don't think there's any question. They don't get all the blood out. They don't care if they get the blood out. You're eating blood. There's no, you know, not that doing it directly, it's like squeezing blood to do it, but it's, sure it's there. Um, that a practice from other nations. That's pretty clear. It's not a Jewish practice by any stretch, right? It's forbidden. So again, the Ramban says in the name of the Rambam that the whole point is not to go in the ways of non-Jews. What they did, right? These Chaldeans, even though blood was disgusting to them, they ate blood in order to have contact with demons, so they can know the future. So that's going, other nations, not, what do you think Jews learned a lot of stuff from? Is from other nations, because we're surrounded by other nations, or we're part of other nations, so they see the good and the bad, mostly the bad, and what other people do. That's why the Torah says you can't go in the ways of non-Jews, you can't go in the ways of the nations, for that reason. Yeah. Any other question? The animal is killed fast, right? It's kind of ironic that there are certain places that will say and not allow ritual slaughter by Jews because they say it's cruel. Now, anyone who's ever seen a ritual slaughter knows that the knife is razor sharp, absolutely razor sharp, and the animal's going to be held down. And again, we'll keep this clean here. That the knife is going to go between the windpipe and the trachea, and will die straight away. Straight away. Now, how that's considered cruel? Because they're anti-Semites. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I saw how, at least when I was in South America, how they killed animals, how they killed cows and whatever. If they want to say what Jews did is cruel, I mean, they were hacking these animals. You could hear the animals like crying out and bellowing, and I'm like, it's too bad I didn't have a camera, show what's going on. I mean, it's absolute cruelty. I'm not saying every place does it the same way. Oh, it's even better. Like, some places you're gonna say, oh, what we do is cruel, but they stun animals. Imagine you stick an electric grid or electric thing on their head. You don't kill them. You don't kill them. You fry their brain. Oh, that's that is totally humane. That is totally humane. That's not cruel. That's not cruel. Well, give me. So you're saying you're only stunning the animal just so you can, overcome it and kill it. Yeah, you know how much juice to give it. Obviously, not to kill it. Very good, right? But imagine, imagine watching this. Can you imagine watching this? Yeah, they take these electrodes, whatever. They put it on the head of an animal, it's big cows or whatever, 600-pound cow or 300, 250 kilo cow or less, whatever it is. Yeah, it's a big animal. They stick these electrodes on it, and what does it do? What does it do? And the animal's like shaking. Like basically, you're frying this animal's brain or other parts of his body, who knows what. How in the world is that not cruel? When they wanted to do that in Switzerland and then say, okay, you're allowed to kill animals, but you have to zap it first. So the 3 days, Rabbi Weinberg, blessed memory, wrote a whole long response about it. Basically, he said, even if they give it a little bit of juice, you don't know what it does to the inside organ. It could make it into a treifa. Could totally make it non-kosher. So he said, not allowed to do it. Right? This is in Switzerland. They wanted to ban ritual slaughter. They say, okay, we'll allow ritual slaughter, but you got to stun it first. So he looked into it. Right? Wrote a whole page after page on this thing. And he said basically you can't do it because even if you don't give it that much juice, it can make it a treifa by destroying some of its organs, its vital organs inside. But how in the world is that not cruel? I mean, that's insane. And they want to say what we do is cruel compared to that. That's anti-Semitism. I don't, some say, oh, you really think it's anti-Semitism? You fry a cow's brain. Oh, the cow doesn't feel it. Oh, sure, the cow feels it. The cow definitely feels it. Now the cow was stunned because you fried its brain. By us, you take this long knife, razor sharp, you kill it straight away. How in the world is that cruel? How in the world is that cruel? And by stunning an animal, that's not cruel. And by frying their brains, it's not cruel. It's insane, right? Doesn't make logical sense. Definitely doesn't make logical sense. Is there a Torah way to see the future? I think the Torah is pretty clear. But what we're supposed to do, we're not supposed to do, and what the repercussions are. But since we're living in a world of Hester B'toch Hester Panim, we live in a world of God's hiddenness within hiddenness, no one can know the future. I mean, Tanakh, predicts what's going to be in the end of days and this, that, but nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure, and there are contradictions left and right. Total contradictions left and right. So it can predict the future, but for most people, we'll never know. We'll never know, and it's not even worth it to try and figure out. Like the Rambam says, trying to figure out what's going to happen in the end of days, totally clouded mystery. You got contradictions left and right throughout Tanakh, throughout the writings, the prophets, and the Torah itself. You're going to make a calculation, come up with the wrong time when the Messiah is supposed to come, and then you're going to become a heretic. You're going to say, oh, Messiah was supposed to come according to my calculation, blah, blah, blah. No. That's why I can't even try and figure it out. But again, the whole point is that there are contradictions left and right. So, you won't have any clarity. Plus, what we see around us, we don't understand anyway, because again, we're living in a world of hiddenness within hiddenness. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, feel free. Find me on Facebook at Mark Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, ethics of our fathers, etc. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.